Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and we are reviewing the reviews for Horizon Forbidden West. Ladies and gentlemen, we're breaking out an oldie here. We haven't done this series since the release of Ghost of Tsushima, so it's been a hot minute, and you may be wondering, why is that the case? Why not just review it yourself, Matty? Well, if you've noticed with this reviewing the review series, I did it for Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, and then one time I did it for Doom Eternal, because PlayStation doesn't really send me review copies, and I'm not entitled to it, but I know a lot of my audience wants to hear me talk more about PlayStation, and I would love to, especially around the launch window of these games, but I'm kind of never able to for obvious reasons. So, unfortunately, I don't have a review prepared for all of you. I'll try to do something around launch timing, but of course with Elden Ring impending, that is definitely the priority. So my eyes are focused on that, but I wanted to break down the reviews for Horizon Forbidden West because the point of the series is to make it easy for you to consume 1,000,001 reviews that are all over the internet and kind of show you highlights. Obviously, this is not the substitute for the full review. I believe in fully investigating them, which I've read each of these to completion. But when you look at this general review roundup here, which is 4 out of 5, 9, 9.25, 8, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 8, 10, 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. Lots of really high scores here, which suggests the idea that this game is very good, which I expected nothing less from an awesome PlayStation exclusive. However, when I started to dig through some of these reviews, I thought that there were some interesting outliers that I also wanted to discuss here and just generally share my thoughts in something that's a little bit different for the channel. Of course, we're going to be talking tomorrow about Cyberpunk. We'll be getting back to business as usual, so I wanted to experiment a little here, try to bring this back, because I feel like if this trend with PlayStation keeps up, where they just don't want to even respond to me, then we're going to have to figure something out to keep in touch with the PlayStation content around the launch window, because these exclusives are huge, and I get excited for all of them, and I plan on picking all of them up, especially like God of War, and if they bring back Sly Cooper, I'm a Sly Cooper channel, just you wait. Anyway, let's talk about some of these reviews. So I already highlighted the roundup here, and I wanted to start off with Game Informer because they give it a 9.25, so I didn't want to start with anything hypercritical, really breaking it down, because there's one review in particular that's been making the rounds that a lot of people are losing their minds over, and I do want to have some thoughts, and I do want to share some thoughts on that. So, when it comes to Game Informer, I picked out a blurb from each of these sites that really I felt stood out amongst the rest for certain aspects of the game to sort of give us an opportunity to talk about the game. So it says, "The world is the star of the show. Forbidden West is a technical marvel with breathtaking vistas, vibrant underwater corridors, and lush jungles." So just pause right there. The underwater stuff in Forbidden West looks so dope. I can't wait for that, because honestly, underwater exploration just always feels very bad. I always think of awful underwater controls, unless it's like a side scroller or something like that, like in Metroid, but otherwise it's never been good. So I'm excited to see how they do 3D underwater exploration, which has been raved about. They say every locale has its own flavor. Just wait until you see Las Vegas, which that never even crossed my mind. That kind of gives me like New Vegas vibes. I'm excited about that. But here's the big one. Traversal has been greatly improved with smoother climbing mechanics and a new tool called the Shield Wing, which acts as almost a futuristic umbrella to let you descend from greater heights. However, the world's constant sense of discovery really had me glued to my controller. Forbidden West is a much bigger game than its predecessor, featuring an impressive number of quests and items to uncover. The story-focused side quests add so much lore that I never wanted to miss one, as they provide a great insight into the tribes. One side quest forced me to pick between two imperfect characters vying to lead a tribe, while another had me battling the most vicious combination of machines flying on top of a Sunhawk. I thought this was a great little blurb here, because it not only highlights the traversal changes, which I'm excited about. Every game nowadays has their own umbrella that you got to float off the top since, I'd say, Breath of the Wild. But what was interesting to me is the scale of this game. Apparently, this is very content-rich, which is to be expected with any open-world game, but all that content is great. This is kind of a first-world problem, right? Because we're in a time where a lot of games that were delayed from the pandemic are finally coming out, and also we have games that have just been ready for 2022 for some time, and they were set to release in 2022, so we're getting hit with a lot of games at once here. It's not slowing down. That Nintendo Direct, which I thought was pretty good, didn't help at all. And so now you've got something that's content rich here behind Elden Ring, which I imagine will be content rich, behind like Triangle Strategy, which I'm personally really excited for. And there's a bunch of little indies that look amazing that are releasing in between. I just want to make people aware that the consistent thing I've noticed across all these reviews is this game is huge. In fact, there is a review here from EGM which says, all told, Forbidden West clocks in at twice as long as Zero Dawn, if not longer. Now, they do critique the story, saying you'd think the extra time would allow for more room to explore the humanity of its cast and their connection to Aloy. No such luck. While the characters returning from the game fare okay, since the groundwork had already been laid, Aloy's interactions with her new allies and enemies feel remarkably rushed. Allegiances change in a heartbeat, crucial relationships built and rebuilt at whiplash speed across a handful of conversations. Moments that should be touching have all the poignancy of pieces being shuffled around a chessboard. Most criminal is that Aloy gets no real arc of her own this time around. So this little section here about Aloy's interactions with others and her not being an interesting character herself is something that I felt in the first game. I always say that I loved, you can go look it up if you don't believe me, because apparently I hate PlayStation. I loved Zero Dawn. That was a game that I was wrong about, because that was when Guerrilla was going from Killzone to this third-person open-world game, and I went, I don't see how that transition is going to work. That was a game changer for me when I played it, when I love this, especially because I love my post-apocalyptic games. But one thing that I always said as I got distance from Zero Dawn was, amongst all of the PlayStation exclusive titans, like, yes, even including something like Days Gone, I found myself actually forgetting more and more the story that was told in Zero Dawn. It stuck with me far less. And I don't think that's a good sign, because I think that's the most organic way we can register if a story's resonate with us is, how much do I recall? How much do I remember? How much sat there with me? Zero Dawn had an amazing world, and I think of those combat interactions and the exploration there, which I think is good that they focused on that. But it seems like, again, some story woes have carried over here, where the interactions, the allies, the enemies, they're constantly shifting around, which is unfortunate, but again, that is a commonality. But more telling to the point I was making earlier, Forbidden West clocks in at twice as long as Zero Dawn. So I swear, you got to retire from life itself to play everything that's coming out this year. It's going to be tough. This certainly is going to be the last time I think I'm missing out on a major review for a certainly big game. And I hope it's just not always PlayStation, or else I'm really going to get a bad rep. But anyway, let's continue on. I want to take a look at IGN, because I think they frame perfectly what sequels are all about. Because in a lot of ways, I felt this way, while not wording it as such, I felt this way about when I was playing Dying Light 2 for my review. They write in the first paragraph, mind you, successful sequels build on their predecessors in multiple ways. Think Mass Effect 2, Assassin's Creed 2, and Uncharted 2. And these are widely regarded as some of the best sequels of all time, especially Mass Effect 2 and Assassin's Creed 2. Like, these were monumental games that the originals were very good. I know some people are hit or miss on the original AC games, since it's kind of old now and very repetitive, but I think there's something very charming about it, and it was amazing for its time. But anyway, I'm getting off track. These were definitive sequels that did much more and improved upon every aspect of the original game. So they say they all improve on what came before them by conjuring up exciting new gameplay mechanics, developing characters through engaging stories, and switching up mission design to offer variety, especially Mass Effect 2 on that one. In other words, they take a solid base and combine with the elements to create more advanced bonds, much like an alloy, or in this case, an Aloy. Horizon Forbidden West does this with aplomb. That's a new word. I've never actually heard that. Building on the already impressive foundations of 2017's Horizon Zero Dawn to tell a thrilling story full of familiar, explosive combat against elaborate robotic foes and blockbuster action sequences, but also adding Witcher-like settlements to the map and filling it out with great side quests. There's a genuine sense of exploration and loads of completely involving lore behind it all to uncover. The result is a fantastic open-world action-adventure that, despite falling into a couple of its old habits, emphatically delivers on the promises made 5 years ago. This is something I saw shared across a lot of reviews too, is that this is, in many ways, more of the same. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's the idea of a sequel. Retain the core and build on top of it. So it looks like they've done just that. To me, the Witcher-like settlements are very interesting. This is something that PlayStation detailed about a couple months ago, I believe. And they actually filled them out with like new weapons you can buy and characters you can interact with. The side quest praise has been kind of the most surprising aspect of the reviews for me as a consumer, because I remember Zero Dawn, the side quests, in my humble opinion, sucked. I did not think they were that good. They were typical open world fodder. And so it's really cool to see that they're messing with choices again, because I remember the start of Zero Dawn, they had some of those emotional choices that you could make, and then they kind of just faded out. They were like, maybe we'll do that again later. It felt like the framework for something else in the beginning of the game, and it changed into this much bigger open world project. But I'm happy to see that they're incorporating choices in the side quests, and they're making them much more engaging, and also building up the lore, because the lore in Zero Dawn I thought was the superstar. As you noticed what I said, like, yeah, the story didn't stick with me, but the world space absolutely did. That stuff was awesome. So I want to get into now what has been considered the most controversial review. This comes from Steve Viver, which gave it a 6.5 out of 10. A very, very low score. And what's interesting is now people are coming at the reviewer for giving it such a low score. I've been there as someone who did not like Deathloop, as someone who did not like The Ascent. I've noticed on both sides of the fence, if you attack an exclusive, I should put that in quotes, that people will come for you because they don't like that you're not representing their box properly. Especially because I took the extra step here to see if the fine gentleman who reviewed it over on Steve Viver had reviewed Horizon Zero Dawn, and he gave Horizon Zero Dawn, as we can see here, a 9.6 out of 10. What we liked: Dinobots, Robosaurs, dinosaur robots, robot dinosaurs, with a few niggling concerns about traversal. Not as happy, definitely, but at the end of the day, I loved Horizon Zero Dawn when it was a small, contained dinosaur hunting game, and then I loved it more when it revealed it was actually the Witcher Dinosaur Edition. I can see its faults, I know they exist, but this game feels like so much of it was built with me in mind that I'm happy to ignore them. I haven't, I've listed them above, but if a dinosaur game has been something you've dreamed of since you were little, and if the chore-based, repetition-focused gameplay of Ark does as little for you as it does for me, you'll be able to ignore Horizon's few faults the way I can. So it's possible that this reviewer fell out of love with the dinosaur game that they never had when they were a kid, and now with the sequel, they were hoping to build upon it. And as we'll see here, very, very critical of the game. For example, right here it says, everything I said about Horizon Forbidden West wide open world is true. You can go wherever you want, and you can do whatever you like within the confines and context of the game. But the confines and context of the game feel so narrow as to be overbearing. Take climbing, for example. A great part of Horizon Zero Dawn was its traversal, which saw Aloy clambering and scrambling her way from one side of the world to the other. I find this kind of interesting because you go back to the old review here, and it says that there were a few niggling concerns about traversal, is the only thing that was disliked by this reviewer. In this, you quickly realize that wits play no role in your achievement. There's a single solitary solution to every problem you face, and no guile is required to determine it. Tap the scan button, and Aloy's focus will helpfully highlight in yellow the one and only viable route up any cliff face. So I'm not of the mindset of dismissing a review just because it's an outlier. Again, I've been there. Like, I think there's value in that, to hear different perspectives. And this person in particular didn't like it, but I saw tweets like this saying, like, don't be silly. The game is good, and by Friday you'll forget what Steve Viver is and just be glad you got a PlayStation. And yeah, that's great, but I don't think we should just be like consoling fanboys on either side of the fence who are upset that someone didn't like the game that you're supposed to like. Because again, as we'll go on with this, you're going to see as we take a deeper cut, there are some reviews that aren't as glowing. For example, I can't bring it up because you got to be a subscriber, but Telegraph gave it a 3 out of 5, and I see no one talking about the Telegraph, which I think is a pretty considerably low-looking score. It says fans will lap it up, of course, and rightly so. Horizon Forbidden West offers more, much more, of the things they loved about the first game, and does most things better as well as bigger. But while there's a lot to like here, it's harder to love. Like a band who goes for extraneous instrumentals and showy solos over memorable choruses, one can't help but want a tad less filler and a touch more killer. So execution, effectively. Not being as showy, which I get. But now Steve Viver is under attack, as we can see here. And I'm not defending them because some of these scores are pretty crazy. Like, I liked Halo Infinite, but a 95... I don't know about that. But people are now grouping up the PlayStation reviews, which are across a breadth of reviewers, and the Xbox reviews, which are across a breadth of players, and using them to solely represent the site itself. And this is what's wrong with number scores. If you've noticed, this is why I do a blurb at the end, like buy, wait for a sale, pass, Game Pass, not to sit here and act like my review process is flawless. I'm sure it's not. But this is the issue with number scores, and as I see more outlets announcing, like, we're doing number scores. Do you want to fall into this pitfall here, where your whole site comes under attack because one person didn't like one exclusive? It's dangerous, man. But yeah, then let's move on to GameSpot, which highlights something that I've also noticed. I saw this in Skill Up's review. Shout out to Skill Up. Probably my favorite reviewer on the platform. Just love the way he eloquently describes stuff. And he talks a bit about this as well. It says the vast size of Forbidden West also feels like it introduces a fair few technical issues beyond Aloy's occasional inability to make eye contact with less interesting characters, especially when you're on a mount or looking over large distances. There can be some texture pop in, particularly with the architecture of settlements. The game crashed to the PlayStation dashboard on me a few times as I played through it, and once or twice a quest couldn't be completed until I reloaded an earlier save, that is the worst in the review process, because you're like always on the clock already and you got to redo stuff. Aloy got stuck looting a chest on an enemy a few times, forcing me to roll back to an earlier save. While these issues sound frustrating, they were spread out over dozens of hours and only ended up being minor inconveniences thanks to Forbidden West's liberal autosaves, so I never lost much, if any, progress. A day one patch seems to have ironed out a few of the pre-release issues I experienced, but while some have been lessened, like the texture pop in problem, they haven't been eliminated. This kind of reminds me of how I felt about Dying Light 2, where they were posting like, oh, we got thousands of fixes, and I tested the day one patch, and I'm like, yeah, I guess some of it's been lessened, but this game's still super friggin' buggy. So, you know, just keep this in mind that there were some technical things, but it seemed more like visual based. This is the only review I can recall where I was seeing like actual content being buggy, which is the worst. For me, if there's pop-in or whatever, it's like, dude, I can live with that. You know, pop-in, oh, it's not perfect. Like, I feel at a certain point, we become perfectionists as critics ourselves. So I can live with that stuff, but just be aware of the buggy nature. And then this last one I wanted to highlight was from Press Start, because we were talking a bit about the storytelling, and I wanted to end on a positive note here, which is one of Forbidden West's biggest successes, and one that reveals itself almost immediately, is a far more convincing cast of characters that are better written, better rendered, and animated, and more pivotal to Aloy's journey than ever before. Gone are the original game's stale and stilted conversations, and in their place, some of the most jaw-dropping character models and motion capture I've ever seen running in real time. This is coupled with top-notch writing, supporting a very wise commitment to the game's cast of secondary characters. Again, this highlights that the cast surrounding Aloy is likely going to interest you more than the character herself, but that's fine because she's the conduit to all of these different characters. So this game looks and sounds great. I thought a deeper dive would be kind of interesting here, because again, when you go to the review roundups and you see the 10s and 9.5s and the 9s, it's like, you know, you got to take a deeper look here and see what people are saying. And also, I thought the Steve Viver issue was kind of interesting. I don't know much about the site at all, but it was catching a lot of traffic on my Twitter feed. So I was like, okay, let's see what's going on here. Do some investigation. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is reviewing the reviews for Horizon Forbidden West. I don't know how often we'll do this. Please try to expect from me just day one reviews, because that's what I always shoot for. But I guess it's not always guaranteed on the PlayStation side of things, which again, we're not entitled to, but I'm trying. Just know I'm trying. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of Horizon Forbidden West? The reviews, are you picking it up? It's coming out this Friday, so certainly I imagine a lot of you will be. Let me know what you're thinking. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.